Ladies and gentlemen, how are we today? So as you can see, I'm actually in a different spot. This camera, this microphone thing, honestly, I'm figuring out picks up everything. So I was realizing as I was talking outside, it was picking up the pool like motor out there. You could hear it in the background. So I go like this, and it was blocking it. I was like, wow, did it again? Like, oh my gosh. So I moved everything inside. And here we are for podcast number 3. So welcome if you're new. My name is Brian. And as you saw in my last episode, I talked about my father. All right, a little bit about my family and stuff. And today I wanted to talk about my creator. All right, my creator is the person that created me. As you know, my dad was the initial starter, but I grew up inside my mother as I was made. And if you actually think about it, it's actually pretty fascinating. So this little itty bitty sperm turns into a person with arms, a head, hair, eyes, legs, heart, lungs. And it's just so fascinating to me how that happens. Like the creation of life is just wild. So today I want to talk about my creator as in AKA my mother. You know, my mother is by far one of the coolest chicks I have ever met. She's kind, she's funny, she cares. And in the last couple of years, she's gone through some mental health stuff, but I feel like we've gotten very close. And I want to talk a little bit about her. So my mom was the mom that was very kind of like, do whatever you want, it's your life. If you get in trouble, that's on you. She was a lot of kind of learn on your own. So I remember when I was 12 years old, me and my buddy Dalton and Steven, hope you guys are doing well, it's been a while, but say we live over here, right? We used to longboard 3 miles at the age of 12 to go to the Carmel Mountain Plaza where we would longboard, we would skateboard. I remember us going into Home Depot. And you know Home Depot has like the really smooth floors, so we used to get our longboards look like we used to walk and we used to look down, and the aisles were long. These were long, like football fields length of aisles that just went straight. And if we found an aisle that didn't have any people, call them over, yo, let's go. And we would go on a knee and we'd pedal as fast as we could, and we would just glide because it was just so smooth. It was like just glass, right? We'd go glass all the way down, and somebody would come up. Remember, we got kicked out over and over and over again, and it was the same manager. He'd be like, yo, like, how many times do I kick you guys out? And we're like, all right. And I remember, like, one time he was like, all right, I'm calling the cops. And when you're 12 years old and the cops are being called, you're scared. And I remember we ran out, we hid in the bushes for a while. Cops never came, but we used to go cause havoc all the time at Carmel Mountain. And I'll just never forget this one time when we used to go into Ross. Remember, we're 12 years old, 13 years old, all right? Like, in Ross, they have like the aisle. So this is an aisle right here. Aisle. And to say if this is an aisle, you have people over here that are kind of facing out shopping for clothes. We used to this is the aisle. We used to go underneath the clothes, hide, and we'd get hangers, and we'd come out and we'd poke people. And they'd be shopping and they'd gently like feel a hanger that hits their leg, and they'd look down, and we would time it so we'd go out, hit it, and come back, and we'd hide. People would look and nothing would be there, and it was just the most funniest thing. Remember, we used to film on the Voyager. Remember the phone that opened up? It was the first phone that had the keypad on it, and I remember it had a good camera. And so we used to like record on. I wish I could find the footage. I can't, but we used to record from the end of the aisle, and it was just so funny because, like I said, people were shopping. We'd look down the aisle, and we'd give a thumbs up. We'd come out, gently poke them and pull back. And there was just nothing there, and they thought they were going crazy. And man, it was just good times. But we used to do that. We used to go to this local arcade, and there were times, obviously, that my mom dropped us off, and it was just relief for her. We'd be like, all right, Mom, we're going to call Mountain. She'd drop us off. I'll be back in 6 hours, 13 years old. So I think a lot of my childhood and person I have become is a lot because I had a lot of freedom. All right. So going all the way up to high school, our house was the house that we'd hang out at. Our house was the house that everybody would come over. We played pool ball. We barbecued. Our house was the hangout house. All right. And when you get into high school, you start exploring many of us with alcohol. If you're an adult, you're with that or not. I mean, let's be real. If your kids want to do it, they're gonna find a way to do it. So, my mom and dad used to always like, all right, give us the keys. You guys can drink a little bit, but no one leaves the house. And so, honestly, I look back. That's honestly, I felt like it was a good thing because when I got to college, I wasn't restricted from doing all that stuff. And when I got to college, I didn't go crazy. Although I was crazy. I'm a lot different person than I am now. Honestly, when I look at photos back when I was in college, I can't even really relate to that person in a lot of ways. But when I got to college, I didn't go crazy like some people did. So, man, good times. And my mother just was just the best mom. And some good memories about my mom I kind of wanted to talk about. Obviously, like my parents, great supporters, came to all my high school, middle school sports. And I just wanted to go over a couple favorite things about my mom. Obviously, I talked about my mom in the last podcast that I made, but I'll never forget, we go to Lake Havasu, right? Lake Havasu, we used to rally around like 50, 60 people in the summer of August. Lake Havasu is a lake in Arizona where it's just like a big party lake. It's cool. It's like, this is the lake right here. It's surrounded by mountains, and it's always hot. And I remember we had a beer bong competition, right? And it was all the adults, all the kids. I had to have been 20, 21, maybe 22. And maybe younger. Maybe I was 19, 20. I think it was in high school. I honestly don't remember, but I'll show you a picture of the gangs we used to go with. And I remember we did a beer bong competition. And I'll never forget Scott, this guy named Scott, guy we always vacation with. His wife, they're probably their 40s at the time. She was like, we passed around the beer bong and we timed it. My dad used to get into shit like this. Like we used to do two bores, one-on-one, and we do tubing. My dad had like a stopwatch where he would time who could do the fastest beer bong, and Scott's wife went. He had the beer bong, and you pour like it's got it's like a tube. You pour it in there, and then you hold it up and you drink it. I remember Scott's wife drank that beer bong in one gulp. I think it was like a half a second, and as she did it, gone. The beer was gone. Everyone was just dead silent like this, like looking around like, holy shit, we have never seen anything like it. And then all of a sudden everybody looks at Scott and was like, you lucky man, like your wife's an incredible swallower. Did you see her swallow that beer just like And I remember it was time for my mom to go. She never did a beer bong before. She has it. She's like, all right, what do I do? And we're like, just drink as fast as you can. So she had it, and we were ready, set, go. She held it up, and I just remember she took one sip, and then she pulls it back, and the beer went all over her. Actually, there she is right there. It was such a funny memory just to see that. And I think the time that my mom really got close was when I had inguinal hernia surgery. I had to, all right, if you have an inguinal hernia, what it is it's right here, all right? It's down your lower abdominal area. And I'll go into a story about that another time about how I couldn't get diagnosed, but I had to go to San Francisco to get repaired by a specialist out there in San Francisco. And it was the first time after college that my mom and I kind of went on a 2-day experience. And it was the first time that we hung out in a hotel together. We went for 48 hours, 24 hours total. Flew up there at night, got surgery in the morning, came back the next morning. So I guess a day and a half. And it really showed you kind of what you can do in a day, but it was really just a great bonding moment for my mom and I. I'll never forget. I booked us a hotel, and I thought it was a 2-bedroom hotel, but it ended up being the smallest little hotel in San Francisco. It was really cheap. And as I walk into the hotel, I thought it said 2 beds. So you kind of think that it's kind of spaced out. We seriously walk into this room, and the room is smaller than this room right here. The beds were side by side. The sink was in there. There was no bathroom inside the room. You had to walk down the hall. And at first we were like, okay. And then like we were kind of like grateful because, I don't know, sleeping side by side next to your mom, like we had some talks before I went to bed, and I talked to her about a lot of my stories in college. This is kind of right when I got back from college. And I'll just never forget, I got surgery, and that was like a experience that my mom and I got really, really close and had like a really, really great time. So obviously now my mom's been going through some mental health stuff, but I'm with her. I love her. And the times I just look back at you, Mom, was just how easygoing you were, how in the last couple of years, I've really been able to open up to her and talk to her. And now that I'm an adult, it's funny because when you're younger, you have to listen to the adults. And then when you become adult, it's kind of like, all right, are we going to get along or not? And my mom and I really get along now. And I love her very, very much. Some epic experiences, though, with life. She turned 16 in a couple months. But yeah, Mom, I love you, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. And we've grown a relationship where we could be completely honest and open with each other, and I feel like that's important. And we're just going to keep living life, baby. So there's some great times with my mom, and I think it's important. If you're someone that's not really close with your mom, just realize that time's flying, and if you can somewhat rekindle that relationship, that's something that I would do, or just a small text to your mom if you talk to her here and there. I know a lot of people I know don't really talk to their mom anymore, so it's a sad thing, but it's part of life. So that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys soon. Yeah, this room's kind of smaller, so I kind of echo, so I kind of keep hearing myself over and over again, so this is probably my last time doing it here. Kind of gives me some anxiety talking because it comes right back to me, and it's hard for me to kind of focus on the next thing. But that's all for today's video, guys, and I'll see you soon, so have a great day. Later.